Welcome to the New Better Boards podcast. This podcast is about how the company secretary can help to create better boards. Our mission at Better Boards is to contribute to creating better boards. We do this by providing clients with an evidence-based approach for board evaluations and board development programs. To fulfill our mission, we would like to give a voice to all who care about creating better boards. Chairs, CEOs, senior independent directors, non-executive directors, company secretaries, academicians, investors, and regulators. All the views expressed in our podcast are the views of our podcast partners and not those of Better Boards. We love diversity and we love to inspire. This week, I'm speaking with Carolyn Ferguson. Carolyn is the company secretary of the FTSE 250 organization, the Go-Ahea Group. Carolyn and I were together at the session bringing agility into the boardroom at the annual conference of the ICSA in London. The session was exceptionally well received, and we received so much positive feedback and encouragement that we thought we preserve some of the things that were said and make it part of the Better Boards podcast series. Welcome, Carolyn. Carolyn, thank you so much for agreeing to be our partner for this podcast. Let us jump straight in. You are the company secretary of a FTSE 250 organization, the Go-Ahea Group. How do you define your role as a company secretary at a FTSE 250 organization?
Okay, I think the traditional and still important part of the role of company secretary is to be a key advisor to the board, particularly around matters of corporate governance and directors' duties. However, I also see how we undertake this role as being equally important. So company secretaries have a huge opportunity to help create the conditions and environment for better boards. And to do this, the company secretary's role has to be as a trusted partner of the board, someone who can help steer the ship, facilitate and enable, supporting the chairman and the CEO in creating a healthy boardroom culture and board effectiveness. So my role in its simplest form is to help the board do the things the right way and be the best that they can be.
And what specific role do, in your view, company secretaries play in really creating better boards?
I can only speak for what I do, but certainly time spent building relationships with individual board members is invaluable. For me, this is predominantly my key relationships with the chairman and the chief executive, which I build through regular one-to-one meetings, keeping abreast of good governance and best practice and sharing that information and providing real tangible support. I believe you need to establish your key relationships with the board outside of the boardroom if you are to become a trusted partner and influencer inside the boardroom. I also think that the role of the company secretary has changed considerably over the years, and our profession has a responsibility to help our boards understand and appreciate the contribution we can make. Being part of the board, rather than sitting on the sidelines, can be so empowering for a company secretary, but importantly can also add true value to the board. So I would say to company secretaries to put yourselves forward and tell your chairman and CEOs what you can do and how you can help. And I think you might be surprised at their enthusiasm.
That sounds fantastic. Maybe for the benefit of our listeners, could you actually say what company secretaries should do more of in their role?
Okay, so I think companies' secretaries need to spend more time with individual board members outside of the boardroom. This is crucially important for the chairman and the CEO, with whom I spend a lot of time to ensure I can become that trusted partner and influencer. It's also, however, very important to build those relationships with other board members, so your senior independent director and committee chairs in preparing for meetings or when working on big projects. I think it's also important to ensure there's an opportunity for board members to build their relationships with each other, both inside and outside of the boardroom, and that can be through pre-meetings, one-to-ones, dinners. And ensuring the board are clear about what their purpose is and how this aligns to the company's purpose and strategy, and importantly, that the board are clear about the decisions they have to make.
Let us look what you do specifically, behaviors, action items. What is it you do specifically to contribute to make your board even better?
To make my board even better, I ensure I spend time with individual board members outside of the boardroom. This is crucially important for the chairman and the CEO, with whom I spend a lot of time to ensure I can become that trusted partner and influencer. But it is also important to build these relationships with other board members, such as your senior independent director or your committee chairs in preparing for meetings or when you're working with them on big projects. I also think it's important to ensure there's opportunity for board members to build their relationships with each other outside of the boardroom too, to understand what their strengths are, what skills they bring, and to build those relationships that will facilitate that good quality discussion in the boardroom. And ensuring the board are clear about what their purpose is and how this aligns to the company's purpose and strategy. And really importantly, it's that the board are clear about the decisions they have to make and they have the right information to make those decisions. And this takes me back to a really important point. I don't think you can forget about the basics of a company secretary role, and that is ensuring that the board has the right information in a timely manner with which to make those informed and robust decisions, and also that the agenda is structured to allow sufficient time for that discussion on the right topics before making those decisions.
What role do board evaluations actually play in all of this?
So I think board evaluations are critical in improving board effectiveness, predominantly because they allow boards the time to stop and take stock and to really think about what they do well and what they could do better. But I have to say, not all board evaluations are created equally. And it's important for the company secretary to help their board understand the value a good board evaluation can bring, and also ask boards what it is they want to get out of it. So what does a good board look like to them? From my experience, the findings and actions from a good board evaluation can also really help set the agenda for the year ahead, be this changes to board processes, more time on the agenda for certain items, the strengths and skills of the board, succession planning, changes to board composition. The output from board evaluations, in my experience, can really support change that wouldn't necessarily be on the radar as part of the board's normal day-to-day.
Oh, thank you so much. I recall our session at this year's ICSA annual conference in London, and our session was about bringing agility into the boardroom. You received so much positive feedback for your specific contribution. For the benefit of our listeners, can you highlight here on this podcast what you do to contribute to making the board you serve more agile?
Yeah, that was a great session at the ICSA conference. In terms of how I make my board more agile, it's everything I've just talked about, really. If you've done the groundwork as a company secretary, built your relationships with the board, you will have prepared the chairman and the CEO in particular to be as effective as they can in board meetings. If you've helped the board to build their relationships with each other, to understand the skills and strengths they each bring to the boardroom, you will have created the conditions for healthy and constructive debate. If the board have the information they need, in the right format, with enough time to read and digest before the meeting, they'll come to the meetings more confident and prepared. And if the board has that shared and common purpose, they will know and understand the job they have to do and what factors or interests they need to take into account in making those all-important decisions. And to me, all of this collectively serves to make my board more agile.
Fantastic. Thank you. So at the end, if you would give some advice to a company secretary who is new in a role and who would like to leave a legacy, any final takeaways, what you would advise them to do?
My one key takeaway is not to sit on the sidelines. I think you can make this role what you would like to make of it. And if you build that relationship with the chairman and the CEO and you become that trusted advisor, you have such a huge opportunity to help create a better board.
Thank you so much, Carolyn. Thank you. If you care about creating better boards, And if you are a chairperson, a CEO, a senior independent director, non-executive director, company secretary, academician, investor or regulator, and would like to contribute to our podcast, please do get in touch and let us know. You can best reach us on info@better-boards.com.